Oh, I know what's around this corner.
Oh yeah, it's the big mammoth and its baby.
That used to really scare me.
Yeah, me too. It's humongous. I find it really sad that they don't exist anymore.
Gosh, look at just the size of its tusks though. That's like, I think just one of its tusks is like taller than I am.
Yeah. They're beautiful creatures. They were beautiful creatures.
Very beautiful.
Well, it's lovely to have sort of a memory of them here in Cardiff. Hi, I'm Kizzy Crawford. I'm a musician, singer-songwriter, and I'm here today with my little sibling Neli Shields, here at the National Museum Cardiff. Okay, so we've arrived. Walking up these big steps. I always used to love coming up these steps. Massive, gigantic steps leading up to the massive building.
Wow.
Yeah, I love this place. I always love this place. It's so epic. And,
It is epic.
you know,
Really. That's quite monumental. And yeah, it does. Like, for such a large space, it really has such a flow. It goes in like so many different directions, and this like great big dome up above when you walk in.
Oh my god, that is trippy. You look right up that, it's like, yeah, so we're looking at the roof of the building, and it's this massive dome with like squares going round in a circle, and it's just, as you do look at it, it is quite trippy. It makes you sort of feel like it's moving. When we were younger, I sort of have memories of just always wanting to go to the same place, the Dinosaurs, but there's so much more, like, there's so much choice.
Hi, Croeso, welcome to National Museum Cardiff. I'm Gethin, I'm the Marketing Communications Officer here.
Hi, Gethin. So we've got these special passes.
Oh, the National Art Pass. We're a free-to-enter establishment, and we normally give 10% off in the restaurant, cafe and the gift shop with the National Art Pass. Please enjoy.
Thanks very much. You know, I've actually played a couple of gigs here in this building, and I've brought my guitar along with me today. And I was just going to ask you if it would be okay if I just had a little play, just to remind me of the amazing acoustics in this room.
Yeah, that would be our pleasure.
Oh, thank you very much.
I couldn't tell you how many times that we've been here over the years, from when we lived, you know, as far away as down in West Wales to like now, and we're just down the road at so many different points in my life, and just watching it evolve as we all grow up together. Yeah, it's really amazing to be here, and to be here without the public, there's not people all around the place. It's so surreal. It's really nice to come here with someone that I care so much about and that I'm like close to, and to experience that together.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, it's really special. It's going to be one of those experiences that I think we'll remember for a long time. Helo, Kizzy Crawford dwi.
Helo, Neli Shields ydw i, a dyma
Cwrdda fi yn yr amfi...
We need to do that.
Cwrdda fi yn yr amgueddfa. Okay, we're going through the big doors. Okay, there's some interesting creatures on the walls. There's some sort of a fossil type. What is that, Nelly, do you think?
I don't know, it looks a bit like a woodlouse.
Woodlouse, a massive woodlouse. There's some, what are they?
There's a hammerhead shark and a gecko. Oh, like helicopters.
Yeah,
like
the little
trees.
helicopters from the trees, yeah. A shark, hammerhead shark. Lizard on the wall. This is I haven't seen this stuff before. This is new since the last time I was here.
Yeah, just these amazing white statues, like huge, hanging from the ceiling
Yeah.
and pinned on the walls.
Oh, this area was always one of my favourite places where we could sit and just look at the stars on the screen. So we're walking into a dark room. There's all space stuff and galaxy on the wall. It says, Yn y dechreuad, in the beginning, genedigaeth ein planet, our planet is born. So this was one of my favourite rooms. We're in a very dark room now. There's 3 screens showing like stars, and I used to love sitting in here. And it opens out into, so I think this is the moon, yeah. Evidence from space. Tystiolaeth o'r gofod. So one of the large pieces of iron meteorite that fell at Namibia, found in 1836. That's amazing. So the big piece of rock that actually fell out of space.
Oh, that is incredible.
Yeah, that is, oh my God, like, you know. There's lots of little pieces in a glass box. Is there any pieces of moon here, I wonder?
Oh yeah, here, look. It's sealed in a glass case, you can't go and touch it. But
Oh, it's an actual piece of moon.
that is amazing.
Wow. Nellie and I were both really creative. We're both also on the autistic spectrum. We've both had a formal diagnosis of ASD, which has brought us closer as well. Like, for me anyway, I've always found that museums are more accessible to me as an autistic person, and somewhere where I get more from it, like actually being physically in a space where I can see and experience like these things that have happened throughout history and stuff. For me, I'm able to digest it better than I am sitting in a classroom. I don't know if it's the same for you.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's it's a different experience. It's more hands-on, and to be able to take things in at your own pace and to interpret things in your own way and in your own language, and to talk about it instead of like, these are the facts and this is how you learn them. It doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're getting closer and closer to the dinosaur bit. The best bit of all. I can see a big dinosaur. Okay,
So
wow.
here-
So I love this bit. So there's all sorts of different types of dinosaurs here. Here we have the bones of dinosaurs are rare in South Wales. The largest is the impression of a piece of jaw with a large sickle-shaped teeth discovered near Bridgend in 1898. It belongs to Megalosaurus, a fierce meat-eating dinosaur that grew up to 9 metres long. That's really cool. So for me, when I was a kid, coming here, it was just, to be honest, it's like how I feel now, just fascinated, and just, I always loved history and dinosaurs and stuff, so coming here and seeing the dinosaurs was always a treat. And you know, it was a bit scary, always a little bit scary. But yeah, love
That's
being
very awe-inspiring. With these, like the fact that these once creatures that were alive, and as a child imagining that.
They're earthlings.
Yeah,
just like us.
exactly. Yeah,
They're not alien.
that's true. Actually, you do almost forget that they belong here just as much as we do.
Yeah. Hiya.
Hiya Kizzy, hiya Neli, croeso, welcome to Amgueddfa Cymru.
Diolch.
I'm Kath Davies and I'm the Director of Collections and Research. It's really nice to see you both here today.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to be here. Nice to meet you.
So we're in this gallery of Faces of Wales. So you can see there's some really important people around us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you to cross over the gallery to the opposite corner, slightly out of the way. So this is a portrait of the poet Danny Absey. It's by the artist Joseph Herman. And the painting, as you can see, is really modest. The colours are muted. It's just quite a simple depiction of Danny Absey. It's grey, it's black, it's blue. But for me, what's interesting is the background to this painting. So both Danny Absey and Joseph Herman, they're both Jewish. They both came from Poland. Absey's family came from part of Poland that was part of Russia, and his family fled. But Absey was born in Cardiff and considered himself to be Welsh and Jewish, and was really proud of that. Whereas Joseph Herman, who painted the portrait, he came to Wales from Poland just before the Second World War. He was the only one of his family to survive the Holocaust. And he went to Llywelyn in 1944 and stayed there for 11 years. So I'm from Llywelyn, so this is why I kind of feel quite, fond of it, of one of the reasons why I feel fond of the portrait. But Herman really became part of that community, and he was called Joe Bach, Little Joe, and there was a great fondness for Herman.
And again, relatable as well, because Nellie was born here, but I moved with my mum and other sister Edie, and from Oxford to Wales. So, and we were welcomed, in the same way. And I now feel Welsh, and I've grown up surrounded by Welsh culture. So it's it's really wonderful to hear about a historical figure who's had a similar experience.
In that part of Wales, and then within other parts of Wales as well, there was something special going on, because there were waves of immigration and refugees from different parts of the world. So you look back at Italians, Spanish people, lots of Polish people. My doctor as a kid was Dr. Bolatz, he was Polish. And this is a narrative for people who come to Wales, make Wales their home, who are welcomed into the community. We can do this. Human beings can be kind and accepting and warm. And I think in that part of Wales, there is a really strong communitarian tradition of doing that. And that's what I like to think. That's where we should be. And it isn't always easy, and I'm not saying that there weren't problems, but on the whole, that's something that we should be proud of. And I think of ourselves as a nation of sanctuary. And I'd like to think of the museum as a place of sanctuary, actually, where everybody feels at home. Yeah. And we've got a long way to go on that journey. Because I'm looking around, I don't feel particularly represented by there's a lot of guys in the room, big, important guys. And perhaps we need to look at the stories of ordinary people from different backgrounds, because that makes it feel, I think, more real and more relevant to all of us.
Definitely. I grew up in a predominantly white area, being often the only brown person in the class and stuff. And so whenever I went, to museums and stuff, it was important for me to see representation of people of colour, just because I didn't see it enough in school. And it's a reason why I think it should be a given and important to include all sorts of history of all sorts of people in all museums across the world. So people like myself and other people who may feel like different or alone or something, that they have representation there. As a child, I don't think I saw enough of myself reflected back. There was a couple of times where I went to museums in London where there was a little bit more going on and stuff. But on the whole, I don't think I did experience enough of seeing representation in places like that. So now we're entering a gallery full of Impressionist paintings, and most of the paintings in this room were collected by two sisters called the Davies sisters.
Gwendolyn and Margaret Davies.
So the first one that we see here is a Claude Monet painting.
For anyone that knows these paintings, they're quite famous. It's the Water Lilies. I've always loved this painting. I think most people that know of it, it's really incredible.
It's mad to think that, the Davies sisters, they would have bought this, for pennies compared to what it's worth now.
Mm. Yeah, so these sisters who were born into lots of money by their father, David Davies, they inherited his fortune. They never married, and they used this money. They decided to use it to buy up all of these paintings, and then when they died, they donated them to the country and to the people, and so we can see these paintings now today, thanks to them.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one.
So coming here, growing up, I think is one of the inspirations for a lot of my artwork myself. These paintings, especially, the Monet and the Van Gogh, I think we're just really privileged that we get to see these so close to home, and the fact that they're from Welsh sisters like us, that's how we're able to see them.
And the fact that we weren't aware that these sisters, you know, from Wales were the ones who actually collected these pieces of art. Yeah, it was inspiring, you know, for me to, you know, way back when, you know, that these sisters, these actually really cool people were collecting all this amazing art and putting it in places where it can be remembered for years and years to come. There are a few sculptures in this room here. One of my favourites is this one here, which is another one collected by the Davies sisters. It's called The Kiss, or Gisan, by Auguste Rodin. It's a very special sculpture, I think. You know, there's so much being portrayed in this sculpture. There's a man and a woman kissing on a rock. Well, it looks like a rock. It's a display, I guess, of love and affection and connection between two human beings, and they're naked in their, you know, natural form, and yeah, it's in the centre of the room. So yeah, it's a very grand sort of statement.
Like, it must have been so shocking for the time in the 1800s to have just these two people, like, vulnerable and on display like this, where it would have been so out of place.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
With everyone all buttoned up in layers and layers of clothing. And
it kind of makes me respect them more, just to know that they collected this piece of art, you know, considering the time that they collected it in. They were probably quite modern-minded or open-minded.
in our family, we're all very in touch with our creativity and that connection to belonging and each other, and have grown up really looking up to you. And because of course because you're 6 years older than me, so when I was like still in primary school, you were like just starting your music career and you were gigging, and I've always really looked up to you. And I think I've sort of maybe like followed in your footsteps of pursuing your art and what's important to you and what makes you feel happy, what gives you life. And I think for both of us that is art in one way or another.
I think our mother has always been very good in the fact that she's allowed us to sort of be ourselves.
Yeah, very encouraging.
Encouraging, yeah. And Mum's artistic as well, an amazing painter, also musical, plays piano, and she's always encouraged us to sort of be creative and be ourselves and make the most of our talents. And now we're entering the exhibition, the Richard Burton exhibition. So the first thing we see when we enter this room is a big picture of Richard Burton, and behind him in the background we can see the Port Talbot steelworks, which are still there today. We come around the corner. It says Bont Fawr Pontrhydfen. This is where Richard was born, in West Glamorgan. You know, he started out in such humble beginnings. In the valleys in Port Talbot, and in these terrace houses like where we live.
Small town Wales.
Yeah.
Big life.
And then it
America,
turned
global.
Exactly, yeah. It turned into like a massive star. And that's an incredible journey that he went on, and yeah, it's really, really cool.
Almost Cinderella-esque, isn't it?
Yeah, Cinderella-esque, and this Welshman, he became one of the most well-known actors in the world. It's really inspirational, actually. And it says here, it's a quote from Richard Burton himself, and it says, I am Welsh. I carry the valleys and the sea towns wherever I go. They are on my shoulders. I can't evade them. I can't escape them. They are my people.
I think that really hits home.
So it says here, and then our Rich moved to Taibach, a funny little boy, 2 years old, Welsh through and through. He didn't understand a word of English, you see. His first language was Welsh, but Taibach was mostly English-speaking. When he first started school, Richard found the English lessons difficult to follow. The connection with Welsh-speaking Pontrhydfen continued, as Richard would often return to see his siblings, to whom he remained close.
I can very much relate to that, I think.
Yeah.
Welsh being my first language in a lot of ways, even though our parents don't speak it, but we have done our whole lives, and together we speak Welsh a lot. And yeah, sometimes it is, as a bilingual person, hard to find words in one language when you're looking for it in the other.
Yeah. Well, I think we, in our family, as siblings, we find that we do speak Wenglish quite a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Whether we're speaking mainly in English or mainly in Welsh, we're always putting a bit of the other language into our sentences.
Richard Burton, this, small town Welsh man, how he became this huge, movie star, and he had to leave that all behind him, and how difficult that must have been. I mean, I can certainly relate to that, that hiraeth, that longing of, almost becoming detached from your Welsh pride, not being able to share that love for Wales and the Welsh language. I would find that very difficult.
Yeah, me too, yeah. One thing that I just felt like I could understand with, his family life and his connection to the Welsh language, and, how he felt when he wasn't at home. I think it comes back to the word hiraeth, which translates to sort of longing to being in Wales and to hear the Welsh language and the Welsh people around you and stuff. And, I think we both have that whenever we go somewhere where you can't hear Welsh being spoken. Yeah, we just have this strong longing to just be back, back in the Welsh landscape as well. We have such a strong connection to nature as well in our family, and that what nature and the outdoors is such a massive part of Wales, and how people see and remember Wales. It's like so beautiful.
So this is a very interesting part of the exhibition. So we have in front of us 4 different certificates. Funnily enough, they're actually all in English, which is weird for a certificate from an Eisteddfod. It says County Youth Eisteddfod, Pontypridd, June 1942. Boys solo came second place, R.W. Jenkins. That is so interesting. Like, over the years, I've collected all my Eisteddfod certificates. I've got them all in a little folder. And it's so cool to see Richard Burton himself, his own certificates, here in the museum. It's just amazing. Awarded to Richard at the County Youth Eisteddfod in Pontypridd. He was the runner-up for English reading in 1942. Richard was awarded first prize in the boys solo at the Port Talbot and District General Hospital Annual Eisteddfod in the 1940s.
His work that he did in the Eisteddfods growing up really inspired him to become a performer and evolve into the actor as he was known. I think that's very much like you, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. If it wasn't for the Eisteddfod, I may never have realised that I could perform, because I was a very shy person, and being forced into, well, not forced, but just really strongly encouraged by school to take part in the Eisteddfod every year was part of what made me, confident enough to start writing my own music and do gigs myself. So yeah, I can relate to that for sure. Maybe some people would find it funny that Richard Burton came second in these Eisteddfods and not first, but it just goes to show that everyone starts somewhere,
Yeah, so Pontypridd, June 1942, that's like the middle of the Second World War. With all that going on, they're still competing and creating art and being Welsh. Yeah. I just love that.
Yeah, me too, that's amazing.
It was interesting for me to see the history of Richard Burton and how he, started to become well known and how he got into his career and stuff, because there was a few things that kind of felt similar to my experience as well. And, the fact that being a part of the Eisteddfod was very important to him, which, was a massive thing for me. And if it weren't for that, I don't think I would have ever had the confidence to go on stage, and the possibility that might have been the same case for him, and just having the Welsh language, which is such an expressive, poetic language, which when you're a creative person, for me personally, it's massively helped me become myself, like the sort of person that I am, and the sort of music that I write. And yeah, it was interesting to maybe see that it might have helped Richard in the same way. So we've reached the first floor and we've come to the Historic Art Gallery. We're going to go in now. Thanks, Nellie.
You're welcome.
These are amazing. We've reached 3 busts. Hi, it's really lovely to meet you.
Hi, it's lovely to meet you too. Welcome to Unseen Unheard. My name is Khair Mohammed and I am the lead artist and curator of this exhibit. The Unseen Unheard project was a redisplay that I decided to lead on, kind of responding to the fact that one of the busts in this now 3 busts redisplay was at the time the only bust of a black man that was on display in any of the 7 National Museum of Wales sites. That bust was the bust that is now on my left of Bokani, and it was made in 1905 during the time that Bokani was actually on tour in Britain and Wales, along with a group of other pygmies. He'd come from Congo to perform. Alongside Bokani, there's also the Arawimi type, which was made around 1910. And this is what is known as a specimen type, so a bust of a kind of person rather than an individual. And finally, to round off the display, we have Paul Robeson's bust, who was a famous African-American artist and activist who befriended the Welsh miners during his stay in Britain.
So how did you make space for these 3 busts?
We have these collections and they're meant to tell a story of Wales and Wales's history and to share that with the people who live in Wales and who come to visit this country. If we don't do that in a way that is actually representative of all of the kinds of people that have made Wales their home throughout history, then we wouldn't be telling the full story. So we needed to do this.
It's very surprising that it's only just now that there's actually movement to do something about that injustice.
No, I totally agree, and I do think also that the way that you do this work is just as important as the fact that people are doing it. I think I was really keen to take the time to do the research, to learn about the stories of these individual busts. We ran a workshop with some other creatives to get their opinions on what should happen, and we, as a collective group, decided that we would take down 3 of the busts that were on display and replace them with these 3. So part of that workshop was us digging up some sound that was related to each of the busts. So Bokani performed with his group of other fellow pygmy people. This was during the Victorian era. There was a lot of interest in what was positioned as the odd or the different, the exotic. One of the other busts, Robeson, how he kind of ended up in the National Museum of Wales collection was that he ended up forming a relationship with the South Wales miners and the labour movement that was happening around the time that he visited. He was performing as Othello in London, and he noticed some protests that were South Wales miners protesting for better working conditions, and they ended up recording a vinyl record.
My warmest greetings to the people of my beloved Wales, and a special hello to the miners of South Wales. Did my Lord deliver, Daniel delivered...
Because of his activism and the fact that he was an African-American kind of during the 60s, the American government didn't like how vocal he was around this kind of activism, like civil rights, labour rights. So they confiscated his passport so he could travel for a period of time.
Hello, Paul Robeson. This is Will Painter, President of the South Wales Miners speaking. Our people deplore the continued refusal of your government to return your passport and to deny you the right to join with us in our festival of song.
Another way of telling these stories was creating a sound art installation where we took people's stories, that people shared during the workshop. I kind of worked with a sound engineer and put it all together.
My grandpa likes to tell me the story of how Paul Robeson was the first black man he ever saw as a young child. He was about 7 years old and he was waiting outside a theatre and he saw Paul Robeson.
What about this third bust, and how would this bust have impacted people at the time?
So the third bust is of an Arawimi type, and it was created by the sculptor Herbert Ward. So there was this tradition during this period of time. There wasn't that many Europeans going to Africa, and if they were either colonizers or kind of quote-unquote explorers, that artists would go on these expeditions, these explorations with the colonizers, and they would take sketchings of tribes of people, not to kind of represent a single person, but to show these are the kinds of people that we are coming across in this new land. So they would take the culturally specific elements, so there's scarification on the forehead, the specific style of braiding, there's ear stretching, and we don't know how many different people that Herbert Ward kind of drew from to make this specific type.
I've been here so many times, we've been here so many times, and we've never seen a display like this. Yeah, it's really different. I've always seen busts, but I've never seen busts of black people.
Yeah, think about if these had been here when we used to come here when we were younger, and how much of a difference that might have made. And I think it's just so important and incredible that it hopefully will have that effect on the younger generations and the children who will come here and see people more like themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, I was never interested in the busts. They weren't like something that interested me. I liked the art and stuff like that. And maybe that was simply because I didn't feel a connection with them and the history behind those particular people. And just seeing these, and you know, it's a really different experience for me. So we've seen all sorts of art from all over the world in this museum. You know, what's wonderful is just to see that sort of thing in Wales as well, you know, in a bilingual country, and to see everything represented in both Welsh and English, you know. I think that's, you know, really great and important, especially in countries like Wales, in Celtic countries, to be using our native language to talk about all this art from around the world.
Yeah, a lot of it brought here or made by Welsh people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you know, pre-lockdown and after lockdown, the fact that so many people from all over the world visit this museum, and the fact that they get to see the Welsh language written out everywhere, you know, they can get a sense and a feel for the Welsh language, and I think that's really special and important, and an important part of visiting museums in Wales. We came here often when we were little, and we obviously, as children, we were never completely aware of, you know, the paintings and the stories behind the paintings. And it's really interesting to come back here now in this new light and to really, you know, to learn so much as we have today about the paintings and the sort of the politics that are behind the paintings as well. And
I mean, galleries are becoming more and more political. That's always been a theme in art, is politics. I think it has to be, really, because it's where people express themselves, and that has to be reflected back at the audience.
What stuck with me the most today is the 3 busts of black people. You know, I've never seen a bust of a black person, which, you know, is kind of shocking, you know, but it's really special that I've been able to see that today and learn about those 3 black figures. And I think it's great that they are now getting that representation. I think it's just important to see more of it, especially for black people, for black children, because it's having that connection with historical figures, with people who have lived. And I never really felt that connection before in that way as I did today. And to actually see their faces and imagine, you know, those people living and stuff, that was really special for me. And yeah, one thing that I've been really lucky to take away from it is the fact that I've even had a chance to have a little play, a little performance, and that was really special because it reminded me of how much I miss doing gigs and performances. You know, I've only ever been performing in my living room, you know, for the past year and a half, and it's lovely to be able to have that experience as well. Thanks for listening to Meet Me at the Museum with me, Kizzy Crawford.
And me, Neli Shields, at the National Museum Cardiff.
If you like this episode of the podcast, please rate, subscribe or tell a friend.
Don't forget, you can show your love for museums with the National Art Pass. It gives you great benefits at hundreds of venues at the same time as raising money to support them.